The Denver Nuggets have fired Mike Malone, NBA champion Mike Malone, that they won a championship with. They are clearing house. They have also fired their executive, Calvin Booth, their general manager, who has been with the team in that capacity for 3 years, has been with the team overall for 7 years. Malone is the winningest coach. He has had the winningest decade in Denver Nuggets history over the last 10 years. A huge, huge staple of the Jokic era in Denver has been the relationship between Mike Malone and Nikola Jokic. What does this mean for the Denver Nuggets going forward? What does this mean for the league? What does this mean for this summer? Are coaches safe in the NBA right now? We saw it with Mike Brown. We saw the success with Light the Beam in Sacramento. Mike Brown got canned. Doug Christie took the job. Then we saw, Memphis fire their coach, Taylor Jenkins, who was widely regarded as one of the top coaches in the league. Obviously, the writing was on the wall there when they made wholesale changes to his coaching staff this past summer and drastically changed the way that they play basketball. And then, this Denver thing kind of comes out of the blue for a lot of people, and you are correct to act like this. Why? Just why? I mean, we are less than a week away from the NBA playoffs. You have the best player in the game. You have a team around him that, at least in theory, could be competitive. And it just feels like the Denver Nuggets have been imploding for a while now. There's a lot of issues with that team. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what this means for the Denver Nuggets. We're also going to talk about how this might have happened, why this might have happened, and was the writing on the wall for something like this to happen? Because there's been a couple clips, right? Denver, a couple clips. They both surfaced. There's actually a lot of clips, man. The Denver Nuggets have been in the news cycle for all the wrong reasons. First, it was the blown layup by Russell Westbrook and, him fouling a three-point shooter. Nikola Jokic has 61 points, puts the team on his back, plays the last 40 minutes of the game. Jokic is exhausted, and we see that game, and that game got a lot of media scrutiny. Unfortunately, when your star player scores 61 and you lose the game in such an embarrassing and somewhat cataclysmic self-imposed fashion, you're going to get a lot of media scrutiny for that. And there was a lot of questions raised at the time about Russell Westbrook's IQ, Russell Westbrook's decision-making late game, but also about Mike Brown. And then a few days later, we see this clip of Nikola Jokic, sort of just upset on the bench. And, give me a W if you've seen that clip all over socials, where Jokic is just exhausted and he's complaining about something. And then we saw that clip where, again, very routine stuff where Aaron Gordon and Peyton Watson are kind of going back and forth. And one thing that I will say is, if that's what you see out on the court, if that's what you see in front of 20,000 people, I want you to imagine what's going on behind the scenes. And whatever was going on behind the scenes, it wasn't good. The Denver Nuggets have arguably one of the 10 greatest players of all time in his prime, and he was not going to be there forever. So whenever you have a player like this, the pressure mounts for you to put a contender around him and to compete for championships every single year. And there are some questionable decisions that have been made by this front office and mainly by this ownership group. And unfortunately, I think sometimes it's the coach who suffers. I think Mike Malone's a great coach. His replacement, for now, we're going to read the statement from Denver Nuggets ownership regarding this move via Swipe-A-Cam. But I do want to say, just to anybody who's just like, wow, how can you possibly do this? I'm going to offer you a completely different perspective on why they might have done it and why it might actually work out for them in the end. Here is the statement from the Denver Nuggets on this Josh Kroenke on this decision. It is with no pleasure that we announce that we have relieved Michael Malone of his head coaching duties, effective immediately. David Adelman will assume our head coaching role for the remainder of the 2024-2025 season. This decision was not made lightly and was evaluated very carefully, and we do it only with the intention of giving our group the best chance at competing for a 2025 championship and delivering another title to Denver and our fans everywhere. While the timing of this decision is unfortunate, as Coach Malone helped build the foundation of our now championship level program, it is a necessary step to allow us to compete at the highest level right now. Championship level standards and expectations remain in place for the current season, and as we look to the future, we look forward to building on the foundations laid by Coach Malone over his record-breaking 10-year career in Denver. There's no amount of gratitude that we can properly convey to his contributions since he joined the franchise in 2015. It is with our utmost respect that we would like to thank Coach Malone for the most successful decade in Nuggets history, setting the all-time wins record and helping deliver Denver our first championship. On Calvin Booth, a little bit of a shorter note. I want to thank Calvin Booth for leading our front office for the past 3 years, and most importantly, for helping put the final pieces in place for the roster that delivered Denver and our fans their first NBA championship. Calvin's knowledge of the game, his passion for scouting, and his long history as a player and executive in the league helped lift our organization to new heights, which we will continue moving forward. We are grateful to Calvin for his 8 years with the Denver Nuggets and know his place in Nuggets history as our first championship winning GM will be honored for years to come. Okay. So here's the thing. Everybody wants to say this is absolutely self-implosion. This is ridiculous. You can't do this. You shouldn't do this. And I'm going to make a case for why they probably had to do this and why it could end up not being the worst thing in the world in the long run. Okay. And then we'll talk a little bit about how this might impact the Raptors a little bit as well. So, from the perspective of the Denver Nuggets, I don't think most people have the Denver Nuggets competing for a championship this year. I know that when you have Jokic, you always have a chance. That's that old adage. But if you've seen championship teams, they are together, they play defense, and this team is not together and they don't play defense. So it's the same argument that Nico Harrison used for the Denver Nuggets for the Dallas Mavericks when they traded Luka. It's like we don't play defense, and ultimately you do have to play defense at a championship level to win. Okay, so Gabe said, "Did you see Raptors have 1,000+ odds to land Jokic?" Yeah, I was going to get to that. So there's two versions of reality here. Version of reality number one, they went to Nikola Jokic and said, "We're making this change. Are you cool with it? If you're not cool with it, we won't do it." Okay. There's that version of reality. And then he gave them the blessing to go ahead and do this. Version of reality number two. And again, I've heard some really bad things about the Denver Nuggets organization from when Masai was there. I'm sure things have changed over the last, 12, 13 years, but let's assume version number two, they went over his head. That he vouched for Mike Malone. Jokic has always been loyal to Malone. He has, even when they were losing in the playoffs, he remained loyal to him. The relationship between Mike Malone and Nikola Jokic is like brothers, right? There's a deeper relationship there. So if that relationship eroded over the last year, I don't know. I don't know Nikola Jokic, so I don't know if that relationship eroded. But if it didn't erode, and this was a decision that was above Jokic's pay grade, because again, just so we're clear, European players don't LeBron their franchises. They don't hold them hostage. They don't say, "Do this or I'm leaving." They don't do a lot of that. Most European players don't. I don't think Luka ever did that. I don't think Jokic ever did that. I'm not sure Giannis has done that, but maybe Giannis has. Maybe he's different, but Dirk certainly didn't do that. There's a lot of differences in how people grow up and how they interpret the world. AAU breeds a very different culture than the clubs over in Europe. It's a very different way that these athletes get introduced to the game of basketball. So if you're looking at this from Nikola Jokic's perspective, if this was a move that was done over his head, and now the coach that basically spent the summer with his family in Serbia, built that bond with him, was with him while winning 3 MVPs, if that is the coach that got fired and he didn't want him fired, well, then I now wonder if Nikola Jokic's future in Denver is certain, right? Bro, the only thing with Nikola Jokic is nothing is off the table, okay? He is a very, very different type of dude. And while I'm sure he loves the game of basketball very, very much, he doesn't need the game of basketball, okay? So I actually would not be super surprised if they explore trade talks. Like I wouldn't be surprised if Giannis and Jokic are on the block within the next 24 months. I'm just saying that. I wouldn't be super surprised about it. If Luka Doncic can get traded in his prime at 25, 26 years old, then Kevin Durant and Nikola Jokic can definitely get traded. Okay. The only really untouchable players right now in the league are SGA and Wemby. So I would not, but I'm sure somebody would. So I look at this from a short-term perspective. Let's go down door number one, in which you had the blessing of the players. David Adelman is a really good coach. I want to say that, respectfully to. Sorry, did I say David Adelman? Hang on one second. Sorry, I just have to check a text that just came through. My bad. Um, yeah. So David Adelman was one of the coaches that was considered for the Raptors job when the Raptors were holding, their interviews. There was a lot of interviews, Darko, Jordy, Ime was in contention, but then apparently dropped out. David Adelman was one of the names that we talked about at that time. He is a very, very well regarded assistant coach. And this is one guy that you don't need to doubt, right? I mean, this is a guy who grew up around the game. His father was a legendary coach. So there's a very, very good chance that he may offer a new perspective. Sometimes the coach just runs out his term. It's not always an indictment on the coach's coaching skills or whatever. Sometimes the locker room just tunes you out. You've been through too much shit. You make one misstep, you have one strained relationship, and things just go wrong. In the short term, if this move had the players' blessing, and this is a relief for the players, this may actually be a blessing in disguise, which allows them to rally around their new coach, their new young coach, and allows them to channel all of that camaraderie. Because the thing that happens in dysfunctional locker rooms is communication breaks down. People stop talking to each other. People are kind of off in their own world. And something like this happening, where your organization literally is dominating the news cycle for firing their coach and firing their general manager, puts everybody on edge. And when people are on edge, they tend to have conversations that might have been put off for like 3-4 months. I would not be super surprised if you think back to, for instance, the Rudy Gay trade. How did the Rudy Gay trade and Kyle Lowry nearly getting shipped and DeMar DeRozan almost wanting out, how did that spark We the North? Well, it sparked it because Kyle and DeMar had a very, very important conversation about, well, I guess it's just me and you here, and we have nothing to lose. Let's just go out and try to win. So it's the same thing. If the Denver Nuggets can kind of come together around Jokic and around Aaron Gordon and Jamal Murray and just say, okay, guys, our coach is gone. We're sorry to have him gone. Our general manager is gone. This summer, we're probably going to break this team apart. Let's go out with one last hurrah. Maybe this takes all the pressure off. By the way, there's no pressure on this team now. The excuse is already baked in. If they get packed up in the first round, nobody's complaining. They fired their head coach. It's almost like ownership took the coaching scapegoat off the table and just they put this the coaching scapegoat on the table, and it almost removes all the pressure. And so now, if you're the Denver Nuggets, you're just like, okay, we're playing with house money. Nobody expects us to do anything. Everybody's writing us off. Everybody's like, hey, it's on ownership. They shouldn't have fired Mike Malone. So let's just rally together. Let's rally together. Times of crisis show character. And I believe there are a lot of high character guys in that locker room. That includes Jamal Murray, that includes Nikola Jokic, that includes Peyton Watson and Christian Brown and all of their role players. And I have a feeling that all those guys, the band of brothers that they are going to come together and hopefully rally around us. That's door number one. That's if this was not a betrayal to the locker room. That's if this did not catch everyone off guard. That's if Jokic blessed this. Let's go down door number two, because that's also fascinating. Door number two is they did this over their head, that they fought for their coach regardless of what was going wrong. They wanted to ride or die, that they feel betrayed by the ownership group that didn't let Coach Malone finish out this season, at least give him a chance to finish what he started here. And to be fired 3 days, a week before the season is such a huge stain on your resume. To think like, getting fired in the offseason is one thing, sometimes getting fired mid-season, getting fired a week before, you would be it's not easy to sell at your next job interview that you got fired like this. So, door number two is the locker room is now disgruntled. They are now looking at front office like, that's how y'all moving? Cool. And they come out and they lay the biggest egg of eggs in the playoffs. They lose every game from here on out. They protest. And next thing you know, we're breaking this team apart this summer. Michael Porter Jr., Jamal Murray, Aaron Gordon, everyone's going to the highest contender, highest bidder. And, if at that point, what are you doing with Jokic? What are you doing with Jokic? You're rebuilding. So look, There's a lot of missteps that brought them to this point. I think a lot of those missteps have to be put back on ownership, not willing to pay Bruce Brown. I don't think Bruce Brown needed $22 million from the Nuggets. I think what he needed was a competitive offer around 12 to $13 million or whatever he thought he was worth. The fact that they were not willing to offer that is what opened the door for the short-term deal that the Pacers signed. And don't get it gassed up. That was a 22 plus 22 deal. No team other than the Raptors was picking up that second year option. So it was false money, really. If they had offered Bruce Brown 60 million over 4 years, I'm pretty sure he stays. The problem is offering him that contract maybe was a little rich, and maybe they felt they didn't want to go into the luxury tax for Bruce Brown. So you lose Bruce Brown, and then you struggle. Last year, the whole commentary was, man, they could really use a Bruce Brown. Cool. So now you have KCP, who's almost anchoring up your perimeter defense because Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. are complete pylons, and there's only so much that Jokic and Gordon can do inside, and you have this huge hole on your roster, which is you don't have Bruce Brown, you don't have that guy off your bench who can work with Jokic, and you also don't have a backup center. So you address the backup center hole, Deron Holmes, he tears his Achilles. So you draft the right guy, in my opinion, but unfortunately, you have some bad injury luck. On top of that, you waste a lot of money on Dario Saric, which you didn't have to waste. And then on top of that, you have Zeke Naji on a $32 million deal for 4 years, and he barely plays for you. Oh, and on top of that, you signed Russell Westbrook to a minimum contract. And granted, he's exceeded the value of that contract, but all of this, you can't even replace what you're losing with KCP because KCP is invaluable. So even though KCP is kind of stinking it up in Orlando, don't forget what he was to the Denver Nuggets. He was a vital, vital, vital part of their championship. And you lose that player. And even though Christian Brown sort of steps into it, you can't get enough from Julian Pickett, from Pickett and Julian Strawther, Jalen Pickett and Julian Strawther to make up the hole. So no matter how much Peyton Watson and Christian Brown exceed value, you can't quite make up for what you've already lost. And now you're seeing this regression defensively, and you're noticing it in the clips, lately in the post-game clips where Mike Malone's just talking about defense. We're not playing defense. We're not watching film. And you're just like, you're airing it out through the media, bro. Mike Malone's always been a little bit emotional. He wears his, but maybe that's something you could have said in-house, right? So anyways, door number 2, this was not a blessed move by Jokic. And now you're, parting everything out. And I think it's worth noting a player like Jokic is not likely going to get dealt to a team that he doesn't want to go to. And I think that if you're a Toronto Raptor fan, you should be very excited about that. You know why? Because there is one coach in this league that he really admires, and that's Darko Rajakovic. I can tell you this, like from everything that I heard about Darko when he got hired, that Jokic really likes this guy. And so, and it's not just because they're countrymen. There's been a lot of run-ins. You have to understand Darko has coached in the Western Conference between OKC, Memphis, etc. So he's been in the same conference as Jokic. They've had plenty of conversations. They've had espresso. So he knows this guy. He trusts this guy. So now, if he's thinking about places that he would want to go, given Serbian sentiments towards America already exist the way they exist, I think a lot of those, mega people that have been propping Jokic up as their great white hope are going to be very, very surprised to know what Nikola Jokic really thinks about the country of America. I'm not trying to make news by saying that. That's a pretty obvious thing. Serbs don't hold America to the highest value that everybody else in the world does, okay? Or, half the people in the world do. So I wouldn't be surprised. I really wouldn't. At this point, the Raptors probably don't have the assets to do it. Fine. But if it came down to RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickly, that's the lottery pick and 3-4 future first, and taking on a bad contract. Yeah. Yeah, stop this shit. I'm not trading Scotty Barnes, bro. But I mean, think about it. Think about what I'm saying from a perspective of, I'm actually going to pull up the trade machine. I'm not even joking. Swipe is going to kill me for this, but I'm gonna pull it out. I want to show you what this could look like, because it is perfectly possible to do something like this if he wants to be here. And yeah, hold on one sec. Pull this off. Okay. Okay. So clearly in any deal, they're unloading a bad contract with him, right? So would you do that plus yeah, it would probably be something like this. I don't think this is enough, to be honest. I don't think this is enough at all, but if he demands to be here, there's really not a lot of wiggle room that the Nuggets have. It will probably take one more as well. So something like this. Oh, shit, it failed. Why did it fail? Apron space. They're an apron team? So they're hard capped. So they're taking back too much money. Oh, so I gotta take Grady Dick off? No, I gotta add another contract from their side. Sorry, I gotta take Zeke Naji back. 1 second. And then I gotta take Zeke Naji. Where the hell is he? There we go. So another bad contract. There we go. What? Now I'm an apron team. Okay. Bro, these apron teams are hard to work with. Am I close? Okay. Anyways, framework of the deal, something like that, right? Something like that. That's very, very close to working, but it's something like that. Like, I would imagine this would work. Now, obviously, Jokic has already made it work with Aaron Gordon and Michael Porter Jr. Why couldn't he make it work with Scotty Barnes and Brandon Ingram, who are just an elevated version of those two players considerably? And then, of course, you got to figure out Jamal Murray plus, Jamal Shed plus, Jacoby Walter. Is that your backcourt? You're giving up Grady Dick in this deal. You're giving up RJ Barrett. You're giving up Jakob Poeltl and Emmanuel quickly. So you're giving up a lot. And they're getting off the Jamal Murray contract, which is a negative asset at this point, and Zeke Naji, which is a negative asset, and they're getting back 4 picks. I don't know, man. It is not. You're crazy. It has to be unprotected picks. I mean, whatever. So, I mean, this is something to think about. You would have the best player in the world for at least a few more years until he starts to tail off. And then, of course, Jokic is the type of player that could easily, he has 4 years left on his contract. They don't have to move him. They don't have to trade him. But I'm simply saying, if this was done without his blessing, he's not going to forget. And you're asking him to trust a brand new coach and a brand new general manager. And that's a really, really tough ask if he wanted the current people to stay. So, they're not doing it without Scotty. You're not actually crazy. You're actually crazy. Okay. I'll say this much. The Raptors aren't trading Scotty Barnes. Just get off it. It's not happening. It's not going to happen. So, and I don't think the Denver Nuggets are interested in Brandon Ingram. So it's going to have to be around these players or it's not going to happen at all. If Jokic says, I won't go anywhere but Toronto and Chicago, you're shit out of luck. Boom. Right. I mean, point being, I wouldn't be surprised if something like this happened. Hey, man. Hey, by the way, record speaks for itself. Same guy who said Luka Doncic to Lakers 2 days before it happened. Receipts are receipts. Okay. And Mavs traded Luka, so Scotty ain't untouchable. Yo. Like, okay. Am I trolling Swiper? Just really am I doing this just to troll Swiper? Like, sort of. I mean, a part of me thinks this is very, very outlandish, but I also believe that if he were to go somewhere, it would be a place of his choosing. Like, no one is getting him. Okay. Like players like this typically choose their destination. De'Aaron Fox chose his destination. Kevin Durant chose his destination. Jimmy Butler sort of chose his destination. That's just the way the NBA works these days, right? When a star demands out, you can't just send them to Charlotte. Okay. So Paradise Lost saying Jokic will go to the Lakers. For what? They have nothing. They have nothing. They don't have their picks. They don't have anything. What is he going for? For LeBron James? Like he's not going. They don't have the assets, right? You need to understand like there's not a lot of teams that have the assets to make a trade like this in the first place. Okay. A team that does have the assets, like, I don't know, the Nets, he's not going to the Nets. Why would he want to go to the Nets? And he's not going to frigging OKC. Why would he want to go to OKC? I mean, sure, he would love to go to OKC. It doesn't really fit their system, but I mean, sure, okay, fine. OKC could work. Jokic for Lucas swap. Yeah. Anyways, it is a complete pipe dream, total fantasy, but that's I imagine that's something similar to what would work because you are getting four good young players and you're offloading two terrible contracts and you're getting four picks. Like don't sleep on it too much. I know y'all not really super high on RJ and Emmanuel Quickly and Grady Dick, but you're actually getting like three really good players there to like really spark your rebuild and to start over. Anyways, there was some talk going into yesterday that Brandon Ingram might be back. That Brandon Ingram might be coming back for the final home game, and that was sort of music to my ears, given the fact that I will actually be at tomorrow night's game with Vince. So that's going to be fun. But it was not to be because he was held out of practice today. Here's what RJ Barrett and Scotty Barnes had to say about Brandon Ingram.
How's Brandon fit in as a person, as a teammate so far?
Oh, man, we love Bi. Bi is cool, man. Bi is cool. He's funny. Obviously something you guys won't really see, but we love having Bi here. Really cool, and we're all excited for when he comes back.
You had the chance to take the floor with Brandon.
And
he's very good. He's very talented, able to score from three levels. They're gonna have to focus on him. Shoots really good from the three. So he's gonna be a main like scouting player when other teams are gonna be guarding him. So they're gonna have to watch out for him. But we also have weapons everywhere on this team. So that's what's just gonna make us so dangerous as well. He's gonna.
So, people talking a lot about Brandon Ingram. I wouldn't be super surprised to see him suit up tomorrow, but I wouldn't also be super surprised if tomorrow we get the notification that he's out for the season, that he's shut down. So I like to see Bi play this season. I mean, sure, from a sentimental, fan interest point, sure. But also, like, this is a guy with a really, really long injury history, which includes Achilles, which includes blood clots, which includes hip issues, ankle issues, both sides, knee issues. We're talking about a lot of issues. The idea that he would play after not playing for this long and then get hurt for some reason, like that would just be too much. Like that would be such a deflating feeling as a fan that you almost don't even want to risk it. Now, I'm not saying that, and again, like going into next season, you're probably gonna have to load manage this guy a little bit. I'm gonna be honest. You're probably gonna have to play him. You're probably gonna have to avoid back to backs. You're probably because I mean, again, this is an asset and it's a very expensive asset, and he's about to be 27 years old or 28 years old to start the season, right? So he's the same age as OG. Like he's the same age as OG, and you're getting a player who has incredible upside, right? In Darko's system, I think he's going to be more efficient than ever. But also, there's some extreme downside here. Injuries are genetic. A lot of what creates injuries are genetics. If you have poor genetics for injuries, you're going to get injured a lot. And it's very clear to me that while there are examples throughout NBA history of guys who got hurt a lot in their earlier years, Vince Carter, and then had relatively injury free careers, that doesn't tend to work out so much for people with Brandon's build, right? If it could be the Pelican system, it could be, it could really be. But this is a guy who's progressively playing fewer and fewer and fewer games as the seasons have gone on. So, I mean, if you want to see how many games he's actually played, let me show you. Hang on one second. One sec. Where the hell is it? I apologize. Give me one sec. Pull this up. Here we go. I got it. So this is how many games Brandon Ingram has played. He has played 79 games, 59 games, 52 games, 62 games, 61 games, 55, 45, 64. And then obviously this year he's played the fewest games he's ever played in his career. That's largely because he's been held out prior to the trade and has probably been, having his timetable extended by the Raptors because they're tanking. But it still points to the fact that on average he plays around, let's say, 55 to 58 games a year for the last 5 years. And again, that's not terrible, but it's less than the award cutoff. It's almost half the season that he's missing every year, or a third of the season he's missing every year. And there's been a lot of, at least from the people that I talked to, suggesting that he just doesn't come back from injuries very quickly. So I don't know. We'll see. My prayer is that he plays 70 plus games next year. That would be great. Just avoid the back-to-backs, avoid overloading him on minutes. And he's going to move a lot more in Toronto. Like in terms of his load, he's going to work a lot more in Toronto than he did anywhere else. The defensive load that this team asks you to take defensively, how they ask you to move your puppies, the positions, you can't just take that. You can't take that end off. Like we saw RJ Barrett take possessions off defensively and it killed us. So everyone's going to buy in defensively. If he's going to buy in defensively and he's going to be moving more off the ball offensively, then again, that's more steps, more injuries. So I tend to believe that more likely what should happen is I think he should be a 25 to 30 minute per game guy. You should load manage him a little bit. And then when you get to the playoffs, when there's no back-to-backs and you have ample time to rest between those games, now you can start to ramp it up to about 32. Do that, or do what the Clippers did with Kawhi this year and just sort of, take it really, really slow to start the season, play, 1 game a week. And then as the season goes on, play 2 games a week. And then maybe when you get to January, February, now start playing every game. Anyways, Alex McKechnie and the Raptors pride themselves on having one of the best training staffs in the league. So if you want to do that, this is the team to do it, right? Now, obviously, the Raptors have had a slew of injuries. Scotty's had a bunch of injuries. Emmanuel Quickley's had a bunch of injuries. So, they may be the best training staff for all I know. I'm not in the industry, but they've certainly had a lot of injuries for a training staff. So it's like one of the best in the league, right? And some of them are freak injuries, like the Pascal Siakam slip, the groin issue, etc. Some of them are just freak injuries, maybe. But nevertheless, the Raptors have been injured a lot this season. And you've added one of the poster childs for injuries and load management across the league in Brandon Ingram. So personally, I don't want to risk it. I'm not trying to sound bearish. I love Brandon Ingram. I think his fit with this team can be fantastic, but there's significant downside risk on that 2+1 that he signed, the 2-year +1. The +1 is insurance against injuries. If you really want to be honest about it, it's not insurance against performance, because I'll tell you right now, if he plays really, really good for 2 years, he's opting out. No doubt. If he's healthy and plays really good for 2 years, he's opting out and he's signing a 5-year deal, guaranteed. And if it goes poorly, at least he has the insurance of a player option on year 3. That's the right way to think about that contract. And I, implore you to let me know in the comments after, when this video goes live, if there's something I'm missing or that's a better way to talk about it. Anyways, look, what's happening in the West, what's happening in the East right now in terms of the playoff picture, everybody wants to act like what the Denver Nuggets just did is so foolish, so unprecedented. But the truth is, you or I can only venture to guess what was happening in the locker room, and you and I can only venture to project or guess how this might turn out for the Denver Nuggets. Again, if it's door number 1 and the players asked for this and they blessed it, I think it's a great thing. I think it allowed them to focus. I think it takes that, excuse and puts it on the table. You're playing with house money, as I mentioned before, and who knows, maybe you can actually push deep. Teams, there's no expectations now. It's the same thing with the Memphis Grizzlies. Everybody wants to say, like, the Memphis Grizzlies are so stupid. I can't believe they did this. You almost wonder if Taylor Jenkins getting fired led to Mike Malone getting fired. That if the minute Taylor Jenkins got fired and every single team looked around and said, we can do that? We can do that? I didn't know we could do that. We can really do that? We can just fire a guy like that? We can fire him, with less than 2-3 weeks left in the season? That's pretty cool. I didn't know we could do that. You know what I mean? So that's possible. Oh, Jace Richardson just entered the NBA draft. Interesting. Speaking of the NBA draft, I actually wanted to talk about that briefly. So I don't know how we're going to do it. I'm going to be honest. I don't know how we are supposed to do it. I don't know. I don't know how we're supposed to get this extra pick or 2 picks that I really, really want. But I cannot tell you how much I want that extra pick. And there's a few players that I'm looking at that I truly like with that pick. And I wanted to just briefly mention, I haven't talked about him on this at all. Hang on. 1 second here. So I made a little mix for Come On. I can't really play the music, but I'm just going to put it in the background. So this is just Come On, I'll watch. Oh. You can watch the full thing with music on our page. So obviously, Come On is my guy. You know, I want him on the Raptors. I trust him implicitly. I think that what he can do with his touch around the basket, as you can see in some of these clips, his touch around the basket, his evolving passing, his potential as a short roll playmaker down the line, his shot can come. Like, I know it will come. I've seen him, taking shots in an open gym, and it's just like net, net, net. And the hands, like smallish hands. So, crazy wingspan, crazy standing reach. Again, I've mentioned it before, same standing reach, a little bit higher standing reach than Wemby. This is a guy that will present the type of lob target for Scotty Barnes that he's never had. He has such a wide catch radius that you could literally throw the ball at the basket. He will get it. Okay. Now, in the hypothetical situation that the Raptors fall, right, in the draft, and they really could. Number one, it is not assured that the San Antonio Spurs will ever lose another game this year. And if the Spurs don't lose another game and the Raptors don't lose another game, I got news for you. You're deadlocked with that team. And so if you're deadlocked with that team, it's a coin toss. You're back down to that situation. So you're 8th. What if a team jumps you? What if a team that's 10th or 11th goes up? Now you're 10th. Now you're picking 10th. Okay. So a lot of people consider this the disaster situation because now at this point, most of your favorite prospects are off the board. Obviously, Ace, Dylan, Cooper, they went off the board a long time ago. VJ, long gone. But now you get to this point, right? Come On might be off the board. Derek Queen might be off the board. Kasparis might be off the board. Now what do? My thought process is if the Raptors fall far enough in this draft, I want to move back. I desperately want to move back. Okay. And there's a few players that I'm really looking for when I move back. Now, obviously, if you stand pat at 10, there's plenty of options. Colin Murray Boyles is certainly an option in that zone. There's plenty of others. Trey Johnson, if he's there, Jeremiah Fears, if he's there. Like you could certainly make a case for certain players. But there's like so much talent in this draft between 12 and like 25 that I would be inclined to want 2 of those picks over like the 10th or 9th pick easily. So if our guy is off the board, if Kaman and Derek Queen are our guys and they're off the board, I want to move back and get 2 pieces. Now, the cool thing about, hiring a head coach that is foreign is that you immediately have a competitive advantage. In my humble opinion, a lot of foreign prospects struggle with the NBA because they simply don't have the same familiarity. They're not used to playing this way. There's a language barrier, a culture shock that just happens, right? When you come overseas and you're having to adopt to a different, sort of like NBA basketball is just not EuroLeague basketball. That's why I was somewhat excited, when they when they traded for Sasha Vezenkov, because I was like, shit, I know it didn't work in Sacramento, but it could work here. That's also why I wanted us to trade for Kevin Huerter. Not that Kevin Huerter is European, but you get my point. There's just certain players that fit into what Darko wants to do. Pau Gasol would have been a perfect big for Darko's system. So would Marc Gasol. So would so would Andrea Bargnani. Like, there's just certain players that can play for Darko Rajakovic that just cannot play for Sam Mitchell. This is one of those players that I think maybe Darko could do something with, and that's Hugo Gonzalez of Real Madrid. he plays on the same team. Sorry. He is he hasn't played a lot of minutes this year. So he came into this draft cycle as a top 7, top 8-ish guy. Most people saw him as a lottery pick. He is vertically explosive. He is extremely dynamic with the basketball. He is extremely assertive and very physical guard. And honestly, before Yegor Demon came over, before Kasparas Siakis came over, they were all in the same sort of class or tier as prospects with Nolan Traore. This was supposed to be the draft of international players. And now when you're looking at it, almost every single person in the top 10 is like a North American player, or at least somebody who played in Division 1. So when I look at this kid, yeah, there's some issues. For sure there's some issues. He sometimes drives without a plan. There's, some questions about how his game will translate, but what you cannot deny is the twitch, the athleticism, the shiftiness, and the tenacity with which he attacks the rim. And if he's available at 17 or 18, like, you can get it. Like, you can get him, and he's really interesting. Noah Estenge is another one, right? Kind of reminds me of Pascal Siakam. I think I've heard some people comparing him to Larry Nance. I've seen some people comparing him to a lot of different players. Man, there's a lot of Pascal in that guy's game, and he is the perfect sort of modern four. I don't know if the shooting will translate. I don't know if the passing will translate, but the athleticism and his ability to run hitchless like a gazelle and catch lobs and, have some shooting touch and be a switchable defender. Like, this is what the Raptors need. This is what they don't have. They don't have a four of the future, unless you think Scotty Barnes is a four. I don't. So Noah Senge is another one. Nolan Traore is another one, right? Not the most vertically explosive guy, but a guy that has really good shift, really good handle, really good craftiness, just hasn't had a good season. And then there's Ben Saraf, the teammate of Noah Senge. Another player that I think some people have compared him to Manu Ginobili. I'm not sure if I see Manu Ginobili, but he's certainly got the tools to make it work in the NBA. Now, you look at all four of those players, and they're all international. You add in Colin Murray Boyles, and there's just a lot of talent in that 11 to 25 range. And you don't know where it's going to fall. You don't know who's going to fall. You also almost always have a player who falls five spots small, 5 spots further than they're supposed to. There's another one for sure, you know. So you look at all these players and you're like, with the Raptors development staff, would I take a chance on two? Now, obviously, last 2 lives ago, we had this discussion with Coach Mo about how many of these young players can you play. Look, I don't care about that. I want talent in the door. I really don't care what you do with it afterwards. If you want to have 3 awesome point guards, that's a great problem. We can solve that later. What I want is talent. What I don't want to do is pick a player at 10 who is just marginally, if at all, better than a player I can get at 18, because that player at 18 is going to come with extra assets. The Raptors navigated last year's draft like, in chess, they give you an elo, right? But every single game has a rating, and you can check on chess.com like what your rating was for that game. And typically, like, the closer you are to about 2,400, and the further you are from 0, or the further you are from 200, the better the game you played. So the best game I've ever played, the best chess game I've ever played, is a 2150. And I am not a 2150 elo, but a 2150 is the best game I've ever played. And it was basically like I was beautiful minding it. Like, I played every move perfectly. It's to the point where I almost had to gaslight. Like, I almost thought I was going to gaslight myself into thinking I cheated somehow. It was crazy how I just knew exactly what to do. The Raptors got like a 2,400 for last year's draft. They hit everything. They knocked it out of the park. I was watching a video by Hoop Reference the other day, and Jacoby Walter, the pick, in hindsight, got a C plus. I was about to break my screen. Pen, we should play chess. Sure. We'll have plenty of time for that this summer. We can stage a freaking chess tournament with a gift card giveaway or something. Totally happy to do that. So also, let me know in the chat after, or let me know in the comments after, if this is something y'all would be open to. People have been asking about channel membership. You should open up channel memberships, etc. So I was wondering if there would be any interest, if there was a membership tier where every Saturday or Sunday there was like a set time where we could watch like a full game and dissect it, not on air, but off air. And it would be open to like 20 people. There would only be like 20 members allowed at any given time, pretty much using Trump's gold card, standard, because you can only have 20 people on StreamYard at once anyway. And you just host like a kind of private watch party and you break down the game and dissect the game. It could be a full Come On Mala watch game. It could be a full Michael Jordan game from the 90s. It would just be a really cool way to learn. I don't know what that membership tier would be. It would be like 10, 15, $20 a month or something like that for 20 people. It would add some revenue on our page. I don't know. It might be interesting. So that was one thing. Also, like later, don't forget about Walter Clayton. Walter Clayton, congratulations to the Florida Gators for winning a national championship. I did not do a post game for that. My girlfriend just came back from San Francisco over, she'd been gone for 2 weeks. So yesterday was, a little bit busy, but, I watched the game. It was very, very cool. Right. Gabe saying, would love to see you break down Steve Nash game. Yeah. So Eric saying, Panda, Nico to Toronto. You mean Neek? You mean Neek Clifford? Or are you talking Nico Harrison? I don't want anything to do with Nico Harrison. Also, to anybody saying Coach Malone to replace Darko Rajakovic this summer, get off that shit. Nope, not happening. No, we're good. Yeah. Anyways, I think congratulations to the Florida Gators. Look, here's the thing. I watched March Madness every single game that I could for an entire month and a quarter. I haven't done this since 2003. 2002, 2003 is the last time I focused this much on March Madness. There might have been another year at some point, maybe the AD year, that I was really, really glued into it, but I was only glued in for one team. I wasn't watching the other teams, and I certainly wasn't watching women's hoops. This year, I glued to the TV for women's and men's. I was like a couch potato. I was like a vegetable. And I was just sitting there and I was watching and I was eating my pizza and I was watching and I was eating my popcorn and I was watching and I was just melting. And I absorbed so much. And here's two things that I noticed. Okay. So this is mainly in terms of why I think the Denver Nuggets made the move that they made, why the Memphis Grizzlies made the move that they made, why certain teams probably I don't think have a chance in hell, why teams like the Clippers maybe do have a chance in hell. To win a championship, to win a national championship, look at the teams that made it to the Final Four. Now watch what happened to the ones that lost and watch what the ones that did win did right. Okay. Duke blew a 9-point game with 33 seconds to go. No cap. That happened. Okay. That actually happened. Think about that. They were up 14. They blew that. They couldn't make a field goal for 10 plus minutes. They couldn't inbound a basketball. What happened there? Experience happened. You haven't been in tight games. You're dead ass tired. When you're tired, your brain's not moving. Your brain is not getting oxygen. Like you're just exhausted. You make mistakes when you're tired. That's a part of being tired. So what did Houston do to Duke that made them so tired? They were physical with them all night. Well, what are the Raptors doing right now? They're physical. They play defense. They beat teams up. They foul them. This is a recipe for success. See, again, basketball is basketball is basketball. Whether you're talking EuroLeague, you're talking, North America, you're talking, I don't care if you're talking rec league. It's the same thing. If you beat a team up for 40 minutes, those last 8 minutes are going to be easier. You do the work early, you exhaust them, right? And then you get an easier 8 minutes to close out the game. So keep it close, keep it close, keep it close. Be the more physical team, beat them to the glass, beat up their shooters, give them hard fouls. And next thing you know, you're going to be a little bit fresher in those final 7 minutes. So that's one thing you notice. You notice the experience factor come in, right? So young teams typically don't win. And, if you're looking at the Toronto Raptors, you're probably not going to win the first time around, right? You're going to need some scars. So nobody's projecting a championship next year, to the point where I would literally bet $1,000 right now the Raptors are not going to win a championship next year. They're not going to win a championship next year. I know that. But you need to take that step forward right now so that you can build that scar. You can build some scars. And in order to build a scar that actually matters, you need to aim it. You need to aim for something. You can't walk into next year with this like directionless approach of like, we'll see what happens. No, you have to walk in with the belief that you are going to go out and try to win a championship. You have to go in with the belief that you're going to make a deep playoff run and that you're going to make it to the conference finals. You have to set that as your goal, Because only when you have a goal does failing to meet your goal actually even matter. See what I mean? Like, you have to have the dream for the dream to break. You can't break a dream that doesn't exist. So you have to start that as an organizational focus. We are going to go out. We are going to conduct ourselves like a team that's going to make the playoffs. And then, yeah, you're going to get to the playoffs and you're going to have, a 6-7 game series against a team, and maybe something bounces your way and you make it out of the first round and you're like, yes, I can't believe it. We made it out. Or it doesn't go your way. And now you have an entire summer to feed on that pain, to work even harder. This shit matters. The other thing that the Raptors are doing. So again, the best of what the Houston Cougars do, the scrappy, defensive, beat you up style, to beat you on the glass, beat you to the ball, have that culture setter. Something that Gino Auriemma said when the UConn Huskies came over Don Staley's, South Carolina team. What he said was, at some point this year, we fell in love with each other. We used to like each other. We hung out a lot together in the preseason. We lost the scrimmage game. I didn't think we were going to make the tournament. This is exactly what he said. He's like, but at some point during this year, we fell in love with each other. That stuck with me because have you ever seen a Raptor team love each other this way? Maybe the 2014-2015 Raptors, the 2015-2016 Raptors. Maybe those teams, because the vibes, were immaculate. Those were some of the vibiest teams in the league. You could see it. It was coming off their faces. It was in the huddles. It was in, it was in the timeouts. It was when one of them got into a fight with another team and the whole team came to rush to their defense. You can see it right now with OKC. You couldn't see that shit with Denver. You could not see that shit with Memphis. It was not happening. Memphis, Santi Aldama is getting shoved on the bench by Desmond Bane. That is not the way productive, happy teams actually manage conflict. Not at all. Productive, happy teams that actually vibe with each other and fuck with each other and actually want to play together, they enjoy coming to work. You enjoy coming to work, you practice harder, you solve conflicts better, and you deal with controversy as a unit. So in order to win a championship, you need that. You need sacrifice. You need role players who are willing to play their roles. In order to have that kind of buy-in, that kind of sacrifice for the team, we talked about faith in the last episode. You need to have a belief that something is possible. So you need to be able to look around the gym and be like, do we have a chance? I have a feeling Brandon Ingram is going to walk into that gym, hit 16 jumpers, and everyone's going to look around being like, oh shit, we could be really good. He instills a lot of belief because he has a lot of respect from his teammates. Ain't nobody looking at Brandon Ingram like they're looking at RJ Barrett, no offense, or Emmanuel Quickly. He is on a S tier. Like, he's more. I'm not saying Kevin Durant walked into your gym. Also, before I forget, I strongly suspect that this will probably not be popular with you guys when I say this, but I have a feeling that the Raptors are asset farming to make a big deal. And I don't know if it's a big deal for Jokic or Giannis, but there is one star who's supposed to be on the move this summer. And that one star has talked about his legacy a lot over the last year. He's crossed 30,000 points. He once said that the Raptors were his favorite team growing up. And I wonder, he's pretty tight with Drake too, huh? If I recall correctly. Yeah. Kevin Durant. Could the Raptors make a competitive offer for Kevin Durant this summer to be their power forward for the next 2-3 years? Nah, you don't want KD. Why not? It's not going to be expensive. He's 36 years old. KD was praising Scotty too. Yes, he was. Yes, he was. Look, you need to look at how landlocked and fucked the Phoenix Suns are. This is not going to be an expensive. This is not going to be an expensive trade. You're probably trading Emmanuel Quickly and RJ Barrett. Like, it's probably bad. Emmanuel Quickly, RJ Barrett for KD. Maybe you're throwing in a pick or something. That's probably it. Like, you're not getting 6 picks for Kevin Durant at this age. His value is in the gutter. There aren't a lot of teams that can trade for him. If he wants out, which I think he clearly does, he's going to have a very short list of teams that he wants to go to. I would not be surprised to see if Toronto's on that list. I also wouldn't be surprised if Miami's on that list. I also wouldn't be surprised if Dallas is on that list. I wouldn't be surprised if Jokic stays put. I wouldn't be surprised if Denver's on that list, if provided Russ is gone. I wouldn't be surprised if the Lakers and Clippers are out. Hell no. Orlando? Would he go to Orlando? No, I don't think he would go to Orlando. They don't have the pieces to make that work. But see, that's the thing. There aren't a lot of $25 to $30 million contracts in this league attached to good, productive young players. With all the evolution that we've seen from RJ Barrett this year, it's a fair thing to say that he is worth significant multiples more. I mean, not multiples more, but he's significantly worth more than he was when we traded for him. And if RJ Barrett plus Emmanuel quickly got Masai Ujiri to cough up OG and Anunoby, then tell me why the same players a year and a half later, much better, secured to long-term deals under team control, can't get you at least something equivalent to an OG Anunoby, which, in my humble opinion, 36 to 37-year-old Kevin Durant is on par. Anyways, I was just spitballing because I think KD is still an okay defender. He's not a great defender, but he's a defensive upgrade over whoever the hell you've been playing in his place there. And, the shooting would be key. And him playing with Brandon Ingram, like Scotty Barnes playing with Brandon Ingram and Kevin Durant, like this is a nightmare. This is a nightmare. Yes, sir. I am lazy as hell. But also, I want to let y'all know that on April 16th, we're doing a free screening of the feature film Copenhagen. It is a Canadian classic. It is incredible. It will be at the Carlton Cinema on April 16th. I'm going to have to change the info on this. Go get your free tickets. They're free tickets, limit 2 per customer. You can get free tickets for that. You can shake hands with me and say, what's up? And it's a fantastic movie. It's at its 10-year anniversary. It won the Grand Jury Prize at the Florida Film Festival, Gasparilla Film Festival, and it also was at the Slam Dance Film Festival. It's a fantastic, coming of age story, but a Canadian guy who goes over to Copenhagen to learn a little bit more about his family and uncovers some incredible truths. It's a fantastic film. It's one of my favorite films of all time. Would play for KD. Scotty would play for KD, not with him. I don't know what that means. Timberwolves would be really interesting. What would the deal look like? Rudy Gobert and stuff? I mean, they're going to have a difficult time holding on to Naz Reid this summer. They're going to have a really difficult time holding on to Naz Reid. Again, I am very, very curious to see, how this summer unfolds. Specifically, Miles Turner, Naz Reid, free agents that are up, their deals are done, and then star players who may want to move on. Look, if this Damian Lillard thing lingers on, Giannis is basically signing up for one more year of his prime where he doesn't have a chance. Damian Lillard's contract is not insured, so it's not going to come off the books if he has, if he has to miss a whole year. And I'm not saying he's going to miss a year, maybe he's going to miss half a year, but at that point, like, where are you, right? So you're looking at teams like Milwaukee, Denver. They could have like actual legends on the market this summer. We don't know. This could be the wild, wild west. Nas for quickly. Yeah, I would do that in a heartbeat. I don't want to say heartbeat because that feels disrespectful, but I would make that change largely because the stretch 5 is just so much more of a valuable archetype than the scoring guard. But yeah, I think quickly actually makes a lot of sense for them as well. I think he pairs really, really well with Anthony Edwards. But if I was building a team around Anthony Edwards, I would find a significantly better passer than Emmanuel quickly to put next to him. In fact, RJ Barrett makes a lot of sense for them. A lot, actually. A lot. Especially if he can keep shooting like 36% from 3. Anyways, that's all I have for you guys today. 59 minutes into this live. Please give this video a like and let me know if that membership thing sounds good to you. If you would be down for it. If we get enough interest, we'll definitely do it. It sounds like a really cool thing. I've always wanted to break down like old Arvydas Sabonis tape, break down a full, Duke game or something like that, and just kind of watch it, slow it down, bring people up on stage. It's a little bit like what they do on playback, but with no audience. I think it would be really cool. Death 4K, is your love for IQ next to Barnes gone now? Can we admit it was a bad contract and not a good fit? No, it's not gone. I think you have to see it next to a competitive roster that's trying to win. You can't be doing all this. Scotty Barnes is trying to shoot with his left hand. Emmanuel quickly is trying to, learn how to be a point guard shit. They're not in their optimal situations. Okay. If we want any accountability for Scotty and him ever to be a superstar, you fire Darko and hire Mike Malone ASAP. Again, why do you assume that Darko doesn't hold Scotty accountable? He holds him super accountable. He challenges him every day. Just because he's not coaching through the media and because he's not putting this shit out in public and being like, Scotty had a terrible game today, I really want him to be better. Like, he doesn't do that. But he hasn't done that to any player. Have you heard him make one comment that's similar to Nick Nurse's comment about, I think the most disparaging or most bearish thing he said about any player all year was Chris Boucher, where he said, I have to coach him like one of the rookies. Like, no, man. Yeah, okay, that's 4K. How do you know? How do you know that? Are you in the locker room? Are you talking to them? How do you know that? Your guess is a guess. Like, my guess is a guess. Fine, you'll say that too. But like, I think I can say I'm making a slightly more informed guess on this, and I'm telling you, he's not coddling him at all. He's not. He's saying nice things about him outwardly. He's saying nice things about him in podcasts. There is an entire podcast that Darko did in Serbian that one of my friends sent to me. So I haven't watched it yet, but I'm going to watch it. And hopefully we can snip up bits and pieces of it if something's really interesting and insightful, and maybe play it, after the next game. Or actually, the next game is tomorrow. Post game will be a little bit delayed because I'll be at the game, but I'll come home and I'll do it. So, yeah. Barnes Scotty said, Darko knows how to praise. Support in public, coach in private. The reality is you got to support your star player to get the most out of him. I agree. You should go and listen to everything Mike Malone has said about Nikola Jokic. He campaigns for him every year for MVP. That's what you want. You want that. Why? Have you ever played basketball? You want to hear your coach saying you're not the MVP? You're not a good player? It's not nice. I don't mind Darko coddling. Scotty needs it. The media hates Barnes. I don't think Scotty cares what the media has to say. Nor should you. Nor should I. I've cared way too much. I've given these people way too much air and way too much attention. It doesn't matter. In the end, look, I'll put it this way, and this is a really, really good point to end this live on, and I'm sorry for dragging this, a few minutes past the hour line. Today, people say, you can't shoot that many threes. You're not Stephen Clay, right? When Peyton Pritchard or when Anthony Edwards came out shooting 11, 12 threes a game, they said, who does this guy think he is? Does he think he's Steph? Does he think he's Clay? And now he's shooting almost 40% from three on over 10 attempts per game. And now you're like, damn, you might be Steph. You might be Clay. I mean, he's obviously not. But the reality is he's proven them wrong, right? You know what's lost to history here? The same people saying you're not Stephen Clay were the same people criticizing Stephen Clay for taking this many threes 10 years ago. It's the same people. They were like, who do you think you are? You could never win a championship winning jump shots, and then you do, right? Everybody hates on everything until it gets done. Now, there's a point that I say, look, everyone's hating on the OKC Thunder right now because they're unproven in the playoffs, and they think it's a cool thing to sort of ride this whole train of like, whoa, you haven't done it in the playoffs. I don't care if they've done it in the playoffs. I understand that that's going to be a part of it, but at the end of the day, the highest net rating in NBA history is the highest net rating in NBA history. Like, I understand there's a chance they're going to clamp up and their second option and third option are going to freeze up in a really big moment and they're going to lose a series. I get that, but they should still prohibitively be favorites to come out of the West. That should be the case. If the regular season doesn't matter, if everything that OKC and Cleveland have done in the regular season is just washed away as, well, it was just the regular season, then why are we watching the regular season? If none of this matters, like, I mean, let's be real. A third of the league is tanking. A third of the league is hopeless. And we're all watching the other third of the league, which is, the Clippers, the Lakers, the Nuggets, the Cavs, the Celtics, these teams that actually have a chance. Now, if what they're doing is insignificant, well, no wonder ratings are down. Because if you're going to tell me that the regular season is just some fucking, preseason, then I don't need to watch it. I just turn on in the playoffs. Fuck. And then, because of NBA fandom being the way that it is, thank you, Twitter. Maybe I don't need to watch game 1, game 2, game 3, game 4. I just need to know about what happens in game 7, right? If a series is down 3-0, are you watching game 4? If you're a basketball sicko like me, you certainly are. But, for a lot of people, they're like, nah, that game is over. But then it comes back to 3-1, 3-2. Now you watch. We have such weird attention spans. This is a sport, and if you love the sport, I think you should just watch it. It's fun. It will be fun to see all the other podcasts go back on what they've been saying about Barnes next season, exposing them as not knowing a lot about basketball. 100%. Yo, man, I am loyal to the core. I don't ever turn on people. And, to me, it's not about stubborn. If I see something in Scotty's game or in Scotty's personality that makes me lean away from him as a franchise player, y'all will be the first to know. I promise you, before I even tell my friends, I will tell you, I've seen enough. This ain't going to work. Still love the guy, still appreciate him, but this ain't going to work. I have not seen anything from him this season that suggests to me that he can't be a franchise player. All right. Talk to y'all later. Have a good one. Enjoy your day. Hit like on this. It's free.